Okay, good morning, everybody. I hate to do it to you, but we're going to talk about the California wildfires a little bit more today. Now, that said, I don't like to cover the same thing over and over again unless there's a new development. And as it happens, I've got a new development to excuse going back into this topic again, and I've got a Cameron with me this morning who was kind of chomping at the bit for not being able to hit the topic earlier. So we might have a little bit of the insurance conversation as well. But what we're really going to be talking about this morning is charity fraud. And now, we've explained that a bit before. How you doing this morning, Cameron?
I'm all right.
So how much are you tracking on the on Newsom's new low, where he's basically scamming money out of charitable donations?
With the whole, I'm going to funnel everything through ActBlue, but I swear 100% of the donations are going to go to the victims of the wildfires.
So, in fairness, up front, everything he's doing is technically legal. Technically. That said, I'm going to come back to that in a minute. When I say technically legal, sometimes the technical is where the crime actually happens. So we've got the article here from the New York Post. Gavin Newsom sparks outrage for soliciting donations to LA wildfire victims via his super PAC. So just not to bury the lead, basically he dropped this tweet. It says, a lot of misinformation out there. Just launched a new site to ensure the public has access to fact-based data around the Southern California wildfires. The truth, California did not cut our firefighting budget. We have nearly doubled the size of our firefighting army and built the world's largest aerial firefighting fleet. Okay, I'll come back to that in a second. He said, California has increased forest management tenfold since we took office. I'd like to see some data on that, because now you're making a positive claim without offering any evidence. California will not allow for looting. Get the facts at California Firefighting or Firefacts.com. Wait. Oh, there's a link. And the link goes to Okay, I'm gonna have to change the way that I'm sharing that link real quick so that you guys can see the actual URL bar, so that I can make the point. Because you look up here, it's gavinnewsom.com/California Fire Facts. Okay, so he said, get the facts at CaliforniaFirefacts.com. This is a redirect. In a very technical sense, without even talking about charity fraud in general, what he's done here, see, it even says, if you hover over it, it even says www.californiafirefacts.com. And then when you click the link, it opens this page, which is not CaliforniaFirefacts.com. It's gavinnewsom.com/California-Fire-Facts/. Cameron, do you know what that's called? I don't expect you to know the answer. It would be fun if you did, but
no, I'm not even real sure what you're asking. So,
have you ever heard the term in hacking and cybersecurity, phishing, spelled with a PH?
Of course. Anybody
that's
ever
that is.
A corporate cybersecurity training has heard that term.
Gavin Newsom is running an active phishing campaign through X, and he's using it to get you here, right? And he says donate to Cal Fire Foundation. Oh yeah, I'd love to donate some money to help out the California Fire Foundation. Let's click on that link. And it's clearly just Gavin Newsom campaign for democracy, big picture of Gavin Newsom. And it says, donate to the California Fire Foundation. Your donation will go directly towards supporting firefighters in the communities they serve, including direct financial support to impacted residents. Well, hold up. Wait a minute. What's this? The URL is secure.actblue.com /donate/CFD Unlock Fire 2025. Okay. And then, of course, there's this great big old list of contribution rules. We subsequently, so after you give your money to Act Blue, we will hold on to it for up to 30 days. Right? It says we subsequently give your contribution to the organization or cause that you've selected on the contribution form within 30 days. So they're going to hold on to that money for a month, right? They're gonna try to collect a little bit of interest off of holding it, and of course, it's being processed through Act Blue. Now, it doesn't actually say it on here. It doesn't. That's what I'm looking for, Cameron. Disclose. It doesn't disclose it here, but because it says that it goes through the Act Blue Charities Inc. That's where it's happening. Because the money goes through Act Blue, the result is that Act Blue is taking their piece off the top.
Yep.
So I'm gonna get into the charity layer cake scam in just a minute. But before we get any further into the article, I know Cameron's got some comments that he's been waiting for me to shut up for.
Well, okay.
I wanted to make sure that we had all that material out there to work with, because this is big shit.
No, well, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. So, with this in particular, Act Blue takes actually a relatively small percentage as far as these things go.
Yeah, it's just under 4%. It's like 3.95%.
Right. So it's actually, if everybody was being honest about how this whole process worked, hey, look, you could throw your money into this big giant pot, and for about 4%, that money will get managed and then will get distributed to the victims of the wildfires. That might actually sound really reasonable to a lot of people. So, oh, okay, sure. But that's not what's being said. What's being said is, oh, hey, 100% of your money will go to these victims, and we're just going to funnel it through this rather notorious left-wing organization. So it's legal, and I don't even know that you could find anything illegal in it. It's sleazy, though. It is, when I heard this, I couldn't help but think of that quote from Rahm Emanuel, where you never let a crisis go to waste.
Correct.
And
yeah, absolutely.
And this is the crisis of crises, rather. This is, I don't think it would be an exaggeration to say, this could quite literally cripple California. I wouldn't be surprised if this ended up having a price tag north of $100 billion. I wouldn't even be surprised if, when all this is done, we're looking at $500 billion, $1 trillion in damages, because you got some 12,000 structures that have been damaged. You could love LA, hate LA, love Hollywood, hate Hollywood, however you want to feel about it. It is a multi-million-dollar industry that does help prop up California's economy. So, I mean, we are talking about a legitimate crisis that has the potential not just to sink California, but negatively impact the entire nation. And so here we go. And Xander, you beat me to the punch. I was even going to give you guys credit because you talked about it on your show last night. Damn it!
Damn, I missed their show last night. But this was the next point I was going to make.
But
because, like I said, what he's doing is he's conducting a phishing campaign. He's doing this. This is a hacking mechanism. This is a type of hacking. It's stealing data.
But here we are. With the biggest crisis of all time, at least in terms of these fires in California. And hey, guess what? Can't let it go to waste.
Nope.
And
got to make that money.
Well, not just make that money. As Xander beat me to the punch, it's not just the fact that Act Blue is a left wing. If there's a word for legal money laundering, that's what it is.
Oh, there's a word. It's a pack.
Oh, thanks, brother. But they're not just going to take the money and become more powerful with the money. They're also going to collect all that metadata and start to use it to target you for future donations and to build campaign strategies. Because if you are the type of person that will respond to this call to action and throw $100 into this pot to help the victims of the wildfires, and I'm not saying don't help the victims of the wildfires, whether or not we like it, we're going to end up paying for what happened in California. Period. That's going to happen. It's going to cost billions and billions of dollars.
So even as we're sitting here waiting for the disasters in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida to get funded, we're going to be paying for this disaster.
Look, I'm not disputing that, but I'm just saying, if you want to get ahead of it even and donate to this, or donate to a cause like this, rather, good for you. But be careful, because there are there's stuff like this with Gavin Newsom just saying, oh no, 100% of that money is going to go to the firefighters and when really it's going to be about 96%, and we're going to collect all your metadata in the process. We just won't mention that part.
Correct. So, and Xander mentions it here, but they also sell that data for tens of millions of dollars. That's correct. The fact that you have just indicated that you're the sort of person that will make such a donation, you're going to start getting emails constantly, text messages, etc. And I'll go back to the contribution rules again real quick. Charitable donations made through this form are received and processed by Act Blue Charities, Inc., a 501c3 tax-exempt organization. So they're going to give you a tax form so that you can deduct your contribution on your taxes. And then it says here, like I read before, we subsequently give your contribution to the organization or cause that you have selected on the contribution form. So you're basically going to be filling out a data sheet and handing it off to these people. Now, it is not as simple as you handing off your information. We've talked a little bit about in the past, and it's been a long time since we've covered this, but we've talked about it before. Facebook has what are called ghost pages or specter pages, and that is, you have a Facebook profile. I don't care if you've ever logged on to Facebook.com or not. If you have been born in America and your name has been, or really on planet Earth, and your family has been mentioned on the internet, as in somebody has sent a text message to somebody else, there is a ghost profile for you through Facebook. If you are 3 minutes old, that ghost profile doesn't have a name or a photo. It doesn't have any information except that it knows that there's going to be information to populate here. An organization like this is able to take that sort of incomplete data profile, compare it to other existing data mining profiles, and find the rest of your information as part of the mechanism to redistribute that data. I gotta be a little careful about how far down this rabbit hole I go, because we're getting into targeting specifics.
Well, no, you don't have to, because anybody with a basic imagination can say, hey, if I know what kind of charities you would donate to, if I know what you watch on Netflix, if I know what time you get up and go to work, if I know about how much your cell phone bill is,
I know when you're pooping based on how often you doom scroll.
But what I was gonna say was, even I, an amateur with no military training, could put together a pretty comprehensive profile on you, just based on these little patterns of life that maybe you're not meaning to broadcast. Maybe you just want to give money to the wildfires, but instead you give them access to more metadata than you realize. They start building a profile on you, and I don't I don't think it's about selling the data to other people. I think companies like Facebook want to buy and sell the data, of course. Um, but I think with Act Blue, it's all about power. It's all about how can we shift the electorate? How can we amass more power? How can we understand messaging? Because it's pretty clear that the Democrats utterly failed at messaging in 2024. And there's even things floating around, like we've all seen the thing with the lesbian co-fire chief that jokes about how,
I
well,
showed that clip yesterday and talked about
yeah,
it.
yeah, if you're
If your
too big
husband
to
needs
carry
to
out of the
carry
house,
him out of the house, that's his fault. He shouldn't have got himself in that situation.
right? Anyhow, you totally derailed me. So that's
You were saying you don't think they're as interested in the money from selling
that's
the
right.
data. They're interested in the power. And
Well, the data that the power gives them is what I
well,
was saying.
so here's the thing: when you sell data, you don't lose that data. So two things can be true at the same time. A big part of the power that they acquire here is the buying power that tens of millions of dollars gives them. So yes, they're interested in the power that they get from having that data, and some of that power is just in the ability to stick you on a bunch of email lists and snail mail lists and just continue to solicit you and try and whittle you down until you start making donations. Part of it is
Or organizing or
organizing
volunteering. If you're willing to knock on doors
targeting
or fill out
information so that they
postcards.
can make.
Oh
Sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was just saying, yeah, the everything. You know what? We could get through this whole show and just keep interrupting each other. I'm sure that would be awkward for anybody watching or any of it.
You, you should go watch. You should go watch Tim Pool's show from last night. He had Jack Posobiec on talking about hick libs and talking about U.S. intelligence apparatus funneling money to support specific YouTube channels based on basically a bait and switch gimmick. You've got these guys. You got these guys on YouTube now they'll look like me, and they'll be doing like gun content, right? And so they're standing there working with a shotgun and explaining how to clean the weapon or whatever, and then they start talking about trans acceptance, and we've got the U.S. government sending money to a British broker that then buys ad space to algorithmically boost those videos in hopes to get guys like you to listen to guys who look like me talk about shit that you weren't interested in, but all of a sudden you're being hit in the face with it. Oh, that's a thing that's going on. And that's the kind of stuff that organizations like Act Blue are able to do with that kind of data.
I don't know that I want to talk about getting hit in the face with anything once trannies come into the conversation. It just makes me very uncomfortable. Very, very, very uncomfortable. But look, this is so scummy. You say a lot on this show that language matters. The meanings of words matter. And nothing here is a lie. This is something that I have said that the Democrats seem to be pretty good at. They don't exactly lie. They tell as much of the truth as possible, and they arrange things in such a way as to present the narrative that advances their cause. And so, yeah, I have no doubt that the vast majority of this money will, in fact, go to wildfire victims. Zero doubt about that.
Let me push back on you a little bit there. As far as the lie thing goes, one of the things we've talked about over the course of this most recent presidential campaign, the Kamala Harris campaign, in a way that we've really never seen before, or at least to an extent that we've never seen before, was more than happy to come out and just outright lie. Right? We've seen for years with Trump on the scene where they tell an incomplete truth to try and make you presume a lie. The most classic, the most obvious examples are the very fine people hoax, where Donald Trump said there were very fine people on both sides. And I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and white supremacists. They should be condemned totally. And then they told the lie. Oh, Donald Trump said that neo-Nazis and white supremacists are very fine people. No, that's a lie. That's not a misinterpretation. That's a lie. Right? Now, in this case, what we're looking at with Newsom's statement, and again, okay, yeah. So during the Kamala Harris campaign, we got a lot of stuff where they would literally just say things that were not true, that were the opposite of true. Like a lot. It was outrageous. For one, probably the most clear example there is they kept repeating the statement, Donald Trump's platform includes a national abortion ban. No, it didn't. It never did. Right? Probably
not even close.
Probably, yeah. So much so that probably the most common complaint among conservatives, other than the arguments about the bump stock ban, which we know was a mistake, is that if anything, we would prefer Trump to be a more pro-life president. Right? So that that was just an outright lie. Now here he says the truth. California did not cut our firefighting budget. We have nearly doubled the size of our firefighting army and built the world's largest aerial firefighting fleet. So this is kind of like the lie that we were told over and over by Kamala Harris about the immigration crisis. She kept saying, "Well, we've cut border crossings in half." Well, no, but hold on. But first you increased them by 400%. So when you say you cut them in half, what you mean is at this point, they're only twice as bad as they were when we first started. But for most of the time we were here, they were 4 times as bad.
Well, see,
so you're telling a lie when you do it like that. So hold on a second, Cameron. So Newsom here says California did not cut our firefighting budget. So forget about this statement here for a minute. It says we have nearly doubled the size of our firefighting army. He makes the explicit fact statement. California did not cut our firefighting budget. And quite simply, that is a lie. We've got the article here from Newsweek. The 2024-25 California state budget, which Governor Gavin Newsom signed into law in June 2024, slashed funding for wildfire and forest resilience by $101 million, part of a series of cutbacks, according to an analysis by the state's legislative analysis office. So, it may be true, right? It can also be true that they have increased over a period of 10 years from 1.1 billion to 3 billion in total spend on forestry and fire protection. But that does not change the fact that this statement is an absolute lie.
See, what I was driving at though was not that Newsom didn't lie or anything to do with the Kamala campaign, but that this, even what you just showed there, where yes, they, on the one hand, they increased the budget by hundreds of billions of dollars, but then they leave out the fact that they actually slashed the part of the budget that arguably would have made the biggest difference in these wildfires. But I meant more broadly with this, where you donate money to this, and most of it's going to end up going to the victims. It will. Now, you're going to be on their lists, and you might as well go ahead and burn whatever email address you use to the ground to donate with it. But that's what I meant, where they're right on the edge of the lie. They're 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 as close to it as they could get. What happened with the Kamala campaign is its own bag of worms. Like she man, I can't even bring her up. She's just too pitiful. That would drag the show into different directions. Also, I just wanted to say real quick, I see Saint Michael, a name I haven't seen in the chat in forever. So good morning. There's an independent Mini United. Never seen that name before. Good morning, dude. And yeah, I think everybody else I recognize. So C Star says that it's semantics. Yes, it's semantics, and not just Democrats, but politics and politicians in general use the semantic argument deliberately so that when you go to fact check them, so that, for example, when they tell you that, well, Donald Trump said there was very fine people on both sides. Well, did he say there was very fine people on both sides? Yes, he said the sentence, there are very fine people on both sides. But was he saying that neo-Nazis were good people? No, he's not.
Right.
And I don't think it's an optimism or being Pollyannish. I think in this case, at least, the number of people that would go to prison if they ripped off the California firefighters fund would be, Black Lives Matter already kind of spoiled a lot of these games. It's gonna be real hard to get away with some of those very same charity scams, thanks to BLM. So,
yeah. So Independent says he usually lurks, and that's cool. I love it when you guys get real active in the chat. I really do. But even when our chat is slow, it's a little hard to keep up with as far as responding to every comment. But I appreciate the hell out of you guys watching. That said, if you haven't already, do please hit that subscribe button. We are rapidly approaching one of those milestones on YouTube that could be a game changer for us. We hit that milestone on Twitter not too long ago, and the results were a very rapid, sudden expansion of growth on Twitter, on X. And I want to capitalize on that. We've got.
I don't think we're ever going to stop calling it Twitter. Maybe our kids will, but
yeah, maybe.
But like that, I hate to tell you guys, but that's still Bruce Jenner. You could miss me with Correct. All your Caitlyn nonsense. Like, that's
correct. And I still don't eat Wheaties. Not that it's got anything to do with Bruce Jenner, other than he was on the cover. So Cameron, it's been a minute. And you and I have not had a chance on air to talk about the Trump sentencing that happened on Friday.
Okay, so we've talked about it some. And really, I think at this point, it just makes Trump an even bigger badass. Like, and the fact that the judge signaled ahead of time that, look, I'm not going to send him to jail. Which is such a weird thing to do. Like, criminal court cases are actually incredibly difficult to predict. Guilty people do go free, and innocent people do get found guilty. Like, this is a thing that happens, and judges have got a ton of latitude and discretion. Like, when your minimum sentence is 6 months probation and your maximum sentence is a year of incarceration, please believe they can sentence you to anything and everything in between those two extremes. They don't normally tell you ahead of time, though. That's just not how this works.
Right.
At all.
Remember Judge Nations famously sentenced, there was this kid that got busted with some drugs, and Nation sentenced the kid to community service, and he had leeway to impose a monetary fine. And so in lieu of the monetary fine, he said, you will spend this much money and you will purchase a coffin and you're going to keep that coffin in your living room until your community service expires, because I want you to be reminded every day of where you're heading with these drugs you're on. So when Cameron says, within that window, they could sentence you to anything that exists inside of that minimum to maximum window. So famously, judges used to, if you were an 18, 19-year-old, 17, 18, 19, right? How many people have you met, especially Vietnam vets, that was like, hey, it was go to jail or join the army or join the Corps. Go to jail or go to war. Right? They don't do that so much anymore.
Which, sending people to the wall has quite the tradition. But no, look, this was done. The fact that he signaled it ahead of time was already weird enough. That's just not something that happens in the criminal justice system. You kind of want everybody kept in the dark until like the sentence and everything is done. Like there's court proceedings happen the way they happen so they can be visible, so everybody can have faith in the system, and it would be its own rabbit hole to talk about all the things that this judge did that were unethical. But basically, this is so that when he's sworn in, he will officially be a felon. 34 counts of felonies. In fact, he's a felon 34 times over. And all that foolishness. That's why this was done. It was just a kick in the shins on the way out the door. I'm going to take my ball and I'm going to go home. Nobody's allowed to play anymore. That's what this was. Like, because basically the sentence was, yep, you're guilty and I'm sentencing you to not a sentence. But because I sentenced you, that stupid pedantic legal argument about at what point you technically become a convicted felon. Well, now you've been convicted and sentenced, so now you're definitely totally a felon. That's why this was done. I'm going to stop. I could keep going. It actually aggravates me to look, this is the criminal justice system, and our criminal justice system, I think, actually tries to get things right. I think that, like any other government organization, there's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of arrogance, there's a lot of abuse of power. But really, if you're going to end up in a criminal court, a U.S. criminal court is one of the ones that you want to end up in. Like, you don't want to end up in a Thailand criminal court, buddy. That's not the one you want at all, right? So to have something done like this, for purely political reasons, to do all these things that step so far outside the norm, and then to gaslight all of us by telling us that Trump is the bad guy for calling the judge out, it makes me so sick. Like, this is the kind of thing that literally undermines the criminal process. It's supposed to happen a specific way. It's all supposed to be a matter of public record, so that literally, if the United States still exists 1,000 years from now, somebody can look up your criminal case and know what happened in your criminal case, because it's that important that the process be completely transparent. And everything about this is trash.
Well, the fact that the judge discharged the sentence entirely, it just reads like essentially a confession. I know I screwed up. I backed the wrong horse. I'm wrong. I'm wrong as I can be. He's basically backing it up and faking it. Waller asks, is this the start of a politician's version of you're not a real soldier unless you're not a real soldier if you don't have an Article 15? Fair enough. I got an Article 15 once. Or I almost got an Article 15. They kind of backed off. They kind of bitched out. But where was it? Oh, Pitt Danny says, but we can still call you a felon. And that was the whole point, was to be able to say, just like Cameron said, it makes you, now everybody gets to call Trump a felon. And here's what I want you guys to remember. If anybody says Donald Trump is a convicted felon, right? You get that. How could you have voted for the convicted felon? Ask him the question. It's an easy question. What was he convicted of? What, and be specific. What felony was he convicted of? Because the convicted felon was not convicted of any felony, period. They say he was convicted of 34 felonies, 34 felony counts, but he was not. He was convicted on 34 misdemeanors that were converted to felonies, assuming that they were in support of an underlying felony, which was never claimed. The underlying felony was never charged, never adduced. There is no underlying felony. So the 34 counts were all misdemeanors. They were all beyond the statute of limitations. And just so that everybody understands this, I'm gonna reiterate this real quick. The 34 counts, the way they got to the 34 counts, he had a lawyer on retainer
Right.
who was paid every month on the retainer, and then so they charged him with basically the number of months that he paid the lawyer times the number of times that payment was recorded in the bookkeeping times the number of times that the payment was made, right? And
yeah,
so
it's a bunch of bookkeeping errors. Every time there was an error in the ledger, that was a separate charge.
correct.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So it at the most generous, we can say he made one mistake and they copied it 34 times. And that mistake was at worst a misdemeanor. And they did not prove that it was a misdemeanor at all. They decided that it was. So, go look at the Alex Jones case sometime. There was no trial. A judge said, you're guilty of the thing I said you're guilty of. Now we're going to bring in a jury to argue about how much you're going to pay for it. There was never a trial, right? He was absolutely denied his right to trial. And what happened with Trump is they dressed that same process up with a closed door, very suspicious trial with an absolutely corrupted judge and an absolutely corrupted jury. Well, a corrupt judge and a biased jury. I'll be fair. A corrupt judge and a biased jury.
Thomas O'Neill. That's I don't know what's worse.
Wow. That's graphic.
I understood every bit of that comment all the way down to the end, and yeah. And look, man, I bet you Sarah Huckabee Sanders has got some get it in her. Just so that we're clear. Anyhow, but no, like even the conviction process itself, where basically the jury instructions were, okay, if you find him guilty of like one thing, you have to find him guilty of everything, and you guys don't even have to agree on the one thing that you find him guilty on. You could find him guilty of the one thing over here, and you could find him guilty of the one thing over there. And if that happens, you guys just have to agree on all 34 things. And since, they kind of didn't like Trump in the first place, that wasn't hard to do. What, you take 34 shots and you can't get one or two of them on center mass?
Right. Basically, you want to convict America's greatest president. Just bring in a bunch of, baby killers.
So it was, yeah, everything about it from beginning to end, the prosecution never should have been brought. And look when people are like, oh, he's a convicted felon. there's a lot of angles you could take it to. Be like, oh yeah, yeah, kind of like Nelson Mandela, isn't he? Now, let me be clear. I understand that Nelson Mandela is a commie fuck, or was a commie fuck. He's dead now. However, you want to see people spin all the way around on their eyebrows? Just hit them with that one. Just hit them with that one. Or here's one. You could say, hey, God, yeah, it's almost like the founders of the country who were treasonous. And they committed treason against the crown. At that point in time, the British Empire was one of the most powerful and honestly one of the most noble and just systems on the planet. And our founders committed treason against it. So, oh man, he's a felon. Yep. There's so many different directions you could take it. It's literally just window dressing not so that Donald Trump could be called a felon, so that people like Chris and I can be called morons for voting for the felon. That's the real reason this was done. This was not to attack Trump. It obviously was to attack Trump, but the underlying motive was to be able to attack us, was to discredit everything that MAGA stands for. Yes, nice necklace. Yes, Bearing. Yes, I'm very well aware of Nelson Mandela's preferred method of execution.
Yep. All right. Well, guys, Sergeant Major said I should beg for some money. So Thomas is just now Thomas O'Neill is just trying to hit me with copy pasta.
It was funny, though.
It was funny the first time. So Sergeant Major says we should beg for some money. Y'all go check us out over at brushfiremind.com, and you can get the merch, and you can hit the support link, buy me a coffee, and we do love it when y'all help this stay full and warm. We appreciate that every time. And hey guys, for reals, if everybody subscribed right now was to go and just sign up as a $5 a month supporter, I'll make Cameron quit his day job. So y'all go click that link, buy us a cup of coffee, and we love you, and we will see you tomorrow.